Welcome to Convocation at College of the Atlantic 2009. My name is Emily, and I'm moderator for All College Meeting. Convocation is actually the first all-college gathering and technically the first all-college meeting, but we'll be here at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays for the remainder of the term. And it's really exciting to see so many new faces. I hope I'll see you throughout the term, and old returning students too. Right now, I get to announce my advisor, Dean of Faculty and Professor of Environmental Law and Policy, Ken Cline. So please welcome him.
Thanks, Emily. Just on behalf of the faculty, I want to again welcome everyone to the start of the 2009-2010 academic year. New students, trustees, friends of the college, faculty, returning students, staff, and assorted friends that gather with us every year for this academic, social, and experiential celebration that we have, and bringing back an alum to talk about, what they've done since COA and what COA helped them in preparing for the world. For those of you who are new to COA, I know for the last week and a half you've been talked at a lot. And it's challenging to think of something new to add to that, and just in terms of what you've already heard. And so I talked to two trusted advisors about what they would want to hear at a convocation speech. Both of my sons have been at convocations over the last 2 weeks and had various reports on it. So I said to them, okay, what would you want to hear? And their advice was very straightforward. They said 3 things. One is don't dwell on history. And I apologize, Todd, wherever you are, and Philip, historians. But they said, resist the temptation to tell them about the old days or to tell them about when you first came to COA. And said, Dad, face it, most of them weren't born in 1989. You might as well have been talk about the Peloponnesian War in terms of the relevance. Talk about the place, that's their place. That COA, as you come here, you need to feel the freedom to make it your space and not feel limited by what we've done before or what others have done before. And there are wonderful traditions at COA, and there's a wonderful culture. And you'll experience all of that, and you'll adopt some of it. But at least for now, I agree with my sons that I should at least let you sort of shape this place for yourself. Okay, second piece of advice. They said, don't use any river metaphors when you talk. So, said, they'll learn about your obsession soon enough. Leave some mystery there. Don't use rivers, don't use water. So, okay, I can do that. And the third piece, which is, I think, also really good advice, and you may also be thinking yourself, is, keep it short. Maybe one piece of advice, one word of wisdom, just something that will help wrap up convocations so they can go out, hang out with their friends, or get ready for the Bar Harlan swim, which is later this afternoon. Okay, so one thought or perhaps observation going into this school year. When you come to school on an island in Maine, it's really tempting to withdraw into a bubble. And I think this is, while I think this is true with most colleges, it's interesting that as academics, we want you to learn about the world by withdrawing from it and sort of this little ivory tower. At COA, that's particularly a challenge. And, the bubble phenomenon is something that I think is in part due to our location. It's also in part because we've got a close community. We don't all think alike, but we're drawn here by the mission of the college, and so we share some things, and that sort of brings you inside a little bit. And also, in many ways, COA was sort of designed that way. And this may break the first edict, because I may talk about history just a little bit, but Bill Carpenter, talks about some of the early ACMs where College of the Atlantic students, faculty, and staff sat around arguing about whether they should adopt Eastern Standard Time like the rest of Maine, or if they should be on their own time system. Okay, if that isn't intentional bubbledom, yeah, nothing is. I mean, that's, wanting to separate yourself from the world. My personal belief is that human ecology actually places an obligation on us to do just the opposite. And I think that human ecology is about being in the world. And being in the world can mean a myriad of things. It doesn't mean that you have to be politically active. It doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time trying to stop global warming, though some of you will probably do that. It means being in the world is about making connections, about looking outward as well as inward. And it can be done through art, it can be done through music, it can be done through performance, it can be done through research, it can be done through conversations, it can even be done through reading. But it's a conscious act. And part of why I say that is that the world really needs talented, committed, creative people. And it doesn't need to wait for 4 years for those of you who are just starting, or for 1 year for those of you who are finishing your last year or finishing your last credits. It needs them now. In many ways, I think some colleges have this notion, well, there's 4 years of preparation, and that you're learning and then you go do things. And I would at least like to suggest to you that while you're learning, while you're a student at COA, that you don't need to wait until you're finished. That in fact, I don't think we have finished products here. That you'll continue learning long after you leave COA. And that should be your expectation. That as faculty, staff, fellows, students, administrators, that we don't want this to be some sort of package that we tie up. That we're not really trying to make you into something. What we're doing is trying to give you a set of opportunities, some of the knowledge that we have, some of the opportunities to really make yourself. So while you're in that process of making yourself, and again, that's an ongoing, lifelong process, use your talents, experiment with what you've learned, go out and try those things in the world around you. Okay, so that's my one piece of advice. It's kind of short but sweet. And I think that fits under my son's edicts of doing something really tight, though I can think of some metaphors that might help using rivers to explain it a little bit better. But I encourage you to go out into the world, resist the temptation of the bubble that's here. And sometimes we'll make it really easy to slip in that direction, but resist it. Take what you learn, take what you believe in, the things you really care about that you're committed to, and engage with others and the world around you. Be in the world. With that, I'd like to bring John Cooper and Alan Fernald back up here for musical interlude. Thank you.
We won't talk at you.
That's what he said. No, as Ken said, speaking of opportunity, Alan stopped by yesterday, and it just coincided with somebody phoning me about playing today. And Alan, I said, well, what have you been practicing? He said, I've been practicing the piano all summer. I said, well, okay, you can play tomorrow. And so that's how it works. We did it last year with Phil, and so we're going to play a Disney medley just for our beloved president. Yeah, really, it serves me right, doesn't it? No, we're not going to play. I'm not even going to mention the name again. Okay. No, this is. This is why I stopped the rock band stuff when I was in high school. Okay. Now we're going to play a beautiful American standard. by the name of Stella by Starlight from the Great American Songbook. And this is, you know, we play because we want to prove to all you guys that are just coming here that there actually is music in human ecology. And you'll find out when you come see me. And a whole bunch of talented students we have here. All right, so Stella by Starlight, everybody.
Thank you. That was beautiful. It is now my pleasure to be able to welcome COA alum Beth Nixon. Beth was a student at COA from 1997 to 1999. She lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where her organization, Ramshackle Enterprises, is based. Through Ramshackle Enterprises, Beth teaches math, puppet, and sculpture building, and also works with community organizations throughout the United States and Canada. She writes, builds, and performs her own puppet shows about everything from termites to pelicans. Prior to coming to COA, Beth attended Colorado College for 2 years. She then spent time teaching art, English, and health to young women in Nepal and volunteering as a farmhand through Willing Workers on Organic Farms in New Zealand. After transferring to COA, Beth focused her human ecology education on the art of puppetry. While here, she studied in the Yucatan and also organized an unsuccessful campaign to rename Take a Break. Her senior project was entitled The Possible Beast, Puppet Epic. Since graduating, Beth has worked with Big Nazo Puppets in Providence, Rhode Island, with the Southwest Harbor Summer Festival of the Arts, and with Spiral Q Puppets in Philadelphia. She's also toured her work to the Andorra International Festival of Women Clowns in the Pyrenees Mountains. Beth just completed her MFA in Interdisciplinary Arts at Goddard. Her dedication, humor, wit, and creativity are a powerful force of social justice, and we are delighted to welcome her back. Please join me in welcoming Beth Nixon.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Can you hear me all right? So I'm Beth Nixon. I graduated from COA in 1999, and I'm glad to be back. I appreciate the opportunity to welcome you all, whether you're returning or are new to this amazing place. It's a real honor to be here and in this position, which is crazy. I can't quite believe it's been 10 years, while at the same time it feels like several lifetimes ago that I was a student here. If you're busy, a lot can happen in 10 years. Actually, even if you're not busy, a lot can happen around you. Revolutions, tsunamis, celebrations, wars, migrations, extinctions. And even if you just sat in a lawn chair for 10 years doing nothing but drinking protein shakes, think how amazing your fingernails would become. What might take up residence in your hair? The magnitude of tartar accumulation in your mouth. I take comfort in that fact. Were we to do absolutely nothing, change, both in ourselves and the world outside, are guaranteed. I'm not saying it would be pretty, just that it's assured. Anyway, I think that given the fact that we've made it all here today, I think we can dream big about the future. In fact, precisely because you are here at COA, your chances are high for living beyond the lawn chair, for actively engaging in the complexities of this enigmatic world, and pushing the next 4 years or 10 years or the rest of your lifetime to bust at the seams with investigations and adventures. You have the challenge and the privilege of being part of a learning community that cares what you care about and works with you to find the questions that you want to chew on. And through swamp hikes and short stories, discussions, journal entries, canoe trips, potlucks, and roundtable debates, somehow you're likely to come away from this place with the tools to make those motivating questions bigger and fuller. Sometimes you'll hit on the tools to answer those questions, or parts of them, but mostly you'll learn to complicate them, and how to articulate your inquiries, and how to open yourself to the possibility that human ecology is not just a vague umbrella of a major that saved us all from needing to decide what to focus on. Rather, it's actually something that shapes how we see the world, and thus how we move through it. Since graduating from COA, I've made my living by being a puppeteer and a teaching artist, and indeed also by being a human ecologist, though folks don't usually realize they're hiring me for that. Though I had been involved in theater, sculpture, and activism for years before studying at COA, it wasn't until I was here and needed to do an internship in my career field that I realized puppetry could be my livelihood. I worked with Bread and Puppet Theater in Vermont and Red Moon Theater in Chicago, and returned to this campus obsessed with this strange, sloppy form of expression. I created my first giant puppet spectacle for my senior project and have kept going since then. I attribute my continued perseverance and success in this field in part to the incredible support and encouragement I received from this community during my first plunge into this work. I write, build, direct, and perform my own shows and work with groups of children and adults to create shows, parades, and pageants of their own. I perform at festivals, coffee shops, living rooms, and street corners. I teach as an artist in residence at schools, camps, addiction recovery, and mental health programs with senior groups and community centers. I create small solo shows using suitcase theaters and work with groups to build giant backpack-style puppets for performances in parks and parking lots. Okay, that's all very nice. But what does it have to do with human ecology, right? Well, lots, actually. Because being a human ecologist involves dwelling in the spaces between ideas. It requires a willingness to see how we are all connected to one another, fellow earthlings of all kinds, and to recognize our relationship to the world around us, be that a classroom, a stage, a forest floor, a coral reef, or a computer screen. The puppetry I practice is not about dressing in black and hiding behind curtains or being invisible. I'm interested in the triangular relationship between me and the puppets and the audience. The materials with which I build puppets are mostly recycled cardboard, newspaper, and other items collected from the local waste stream. The shows I write come from my experiences and imaginings. The projects I facilitate depend on the participants to design and enact them. Often they are place-based performances about the neighborhood or community where the participants reside. In my own work, I often look to other life forms for inspiration. For example, a few summers ago, I was in a really difficult situation, which I will tell you about. I'm sorry, it's really weird for me to read off of a speech. I'm not used to this form of communication, but I didn't trust myself to ad-lib about human ecology. So what I was saying was that I was working in North Philly with a group of 17, 14 to 21-year-old at-risk students. I do the quotations because of the problematic nature of that term, seeing how we're all at risk of something. And there was no air conditioning in a boiling cement room from 9 to 3 each day, supposedly working with them to create a puppet show that they would tour to different daycare centers around the neighborhood. The students hadn't exactly chosen to be in the program, and the power dynamic was complicated by the fact that I was both their boss and their teacher, as they were getting paid minimum wage as well as getting school credit to be in the class. The students came from a variety of cultures, including Puerto Rican, Dominican, African American, Filipino, and Chinese. Folks weren't getting along with me or each other, and they couldn't have cared less about the puppets. I was uncomfortable being this sweaty, white authority figure, and I was struggling to figure out how to complete the project, how to navigate the relationships, and how to be in charge and share power simultaneously. I would return home each night exhausted and take solace in reading about sloths. Their slow pace, their symbiotic capabilities. Here I was feeling frustrated by our inability to work with each other, all of the same species, feeling the divisions between race, class, and gender breeding hostility, and here was the sloth who had it all figured out. The summer wore on, and though we never achieved interpersonal or artistic symbiosis, we did have some unifying moments. The students ended up producing a compelling puppet show about violence that both scared and entertained dozens of preschoolers in the neighborhood. And in the meantime, at home, I did sloth research and worked on creating a puppet show of my own that enacted my struggles, attempting to practice emancipatory pedagogy and anti-racism. With the help of these talented volunteers, Matt and Alice, I will now perform for you just a tiny segment of this show. It's a sample of some theatrical human ecology in action, for which I must transform into a sloth. So this employs a technique of puppetry called the contestoria, which is an people use to spread news to the illiterate masses. Not that you guys are the illiterate masses, but it is a good way of getting information out there in a catchy little number. This is my slop skin, slop head. We're sort of limited here because I had to mail everything. So we need your help, though, to make this snippet of a puppet show really its fullest. We need group participation here. So if you can pronounce after me, Bradypus.
Bradypus.
Tridactylus.
Tridactylus.
Bradypus tridactylus.
Bradypus tridactylus.
Fantastic. Now, Bradypodopola.
Bradypodopola.
Hanelli.
Hanelli.
Bradypodopola Hanelli.
Bradypodopola Hanelli.
Fantastic. So here are my 3 toads, and here is my algae, and here is my tree, here is my moth. Without further ado, here we go. So I'm not a singer necessarily, but up in the rainforest canopy of northern parts of Brazil, Bradypus spends a lot less time moving than I spend standing still. Having a low body temperature, I don't need much to eat. Animals requiring more energy are not able to compete. Most of my lifetime is spent alone, not part of a group or pair. But I'm always kept company by the algae that grows on my hair. In times of drought, it's yellow, but most of the time it's green, matching the seasonal foliage, so Bradypus can't be seen. Bradypus tridactylus, a greenish 3-toed sloth. Bradypodopola Hanelli is the brown companion moth. You can try it. Bradypus tridactylus, a greenish 3-toed sloth. And Bradypodopola Hanelli is the brown companion moth. This algae that helps me match my tree is also a tasty meal for the moths that live in my fur, munching away with zeal. Moths accompany me on my trip to make my weekly dump. I slowly climb down to the ground, dig a hole at the base of the trunk. My deposit in this hole recycles nutrients from leaves I ate, direct fertilizer to the roots.
The tree thinks this is great.
The moths jump off me briefly to lay eggs in my warm crap. I cover over the hole and then ascend again to nap. Bradypus tridactylus, a greenish 3-toed sloth. And Bradypodopola Hanelli is the brown companion moth. Oh, Bradypus tridactylus, a greenish 3-toed sloth. And Bradypodopola Hanelli is the brown companion moth. A tree, a sloth, a moth, some algae, my diverse family. 4 such different species living in symbiotic harmony. Oh, not to rub it in, dear humans. You folks seem bizarre. If we all can do it, so could you. Then your species would go far. Race, class, gender dynamics, all essential to examine. But please remember, at your root, you're a human, not elk nor salmon. Thank you very much. Thanks also to Matt and Allison for their impromptu help. You can always count on COA students to volunteer for things they don't know what they're getting themselves into. So this past summer, I graduated from Goddard College in Vermont with an MFA in interdisciplinary arts. I can't seem to get enough of John Dewey and these flagrantly non-specific degrees. To be heading forth into the future as both a human ecologist and an interdisciplinary artist means I've committed to a lifetime of explaining what the heck I actually do and care about. It means that I've had the opportunity to follow my imagination, which is exceedingly rare in this strange system we've created. And it means I didn't need to decide between action and research, or between teaching and learning, between humanity and ecology, or between art and science. It means I don't have to commit to one identity or one issue. It means that I can be focused, but rather than narrow my vision, I'm getting comfortable with paradox, where often the answer to either or questions is both. And having been nourished by such a breadth of possibilities and supported in all of my various manifestations, I recognize that I have the responsibility to be the kind of citizen, artist, teacher, mother, friend, human that works to live justly in these murky spaces between. Then there's a big space where I was going to write some sort of rousing conclusion, and couldn't come to any other than that I hope your time here at COA feeds your imagination, stretches your capacity for wonder, and leaves you, this is the metaphor I wasn't so sure about, leaves you sucking on a lozenge of curiosity that, so thank you so much for listening. Thanks for having me here, and have an amazing time. This is a really unique and powerful place, and so are all of you. Thanks.
Wow, thank you. That was definitely rousing. I, lastly, would finally like to welcome COA President David Hales. Thank you.
One of the most comforting things about speaking at Convocation is that nobody remembers what you say. And for the most part, most people don't remember what happened, or even if they went through Convocation when they went to college. Those people never had Beth Nixon at their Convocation. They may have had John Cooper and his Mickey Mouse music. This is an ongoing battle, for those of you who are new, that started last year when John referred to the Davis Student Village as Eco-Disney. So next year, I will be fully ready, John, to take my lumps, because you don't get the microphone back today. The academic tradition of Convocation is an ancient one, much older than this country is. It is a gathering of a community of scholars around a common purpose. One of the fun things to do at this event every year is to take a look around and introduce people who are part of this community of scholars. Sometimes reintroduce, but sometimes introduce some of you for the first time. Let me start, if I might, by asking all of the trustees who are here to stand. Bill? And without any disrespect to Bill Folk, our chairman, Amy Geyer, Tony Robinson, our Philip Kuhnhart, may I ask again if Les Brewer and Father Jim Gower would stand. Les and Father Jim were the co-quarterbacks of the Bar Harbor High School football team somewhere around 1904 or somewhere back in the dark ages when there were only 1.5 million people on the planet. But they are also two of the founding trustees of College of the Atlantic. And so despite the wise advice, Ken, from your sons, that little bit of history, I hope, is welcomed by all of you. Let me also introduce to you the staff of College of the Atlantic. We'll come to faculty in a moment, but every day that we open up, every day that you get something good to eat, every day that the classrooms are warm, every day that there is snow off the sidewalks, every time you ask for a transcript, every time you pay your bills or don't, every time we pay our bills or don't, it is because the staff of this wonderful college, who are as committed to its mission as anyone else could be, make all of that possible. And I would like to ask the staff of this college to please stand up. And Millard, come up here. Millard Doherty, for those of you who don't know him, is as much as anyone could ever be the heart and soul of this college. Millard is coming back from heart surgery. We are so happy, Millard, that you are back with us, and I suspect you can tell by that round of applause that you are truly loved around here. The faculty of the College of the Atlantic. Stay up, stay up, stay up. You only clap that long because you know that they're likely to give you grades at some point, and that some of them, at least in the classes that are graded, were watching carefully to see who quit clapping first. Noah, it was you, and so for those of you who want to make such notes, Noah Hodgetts. Hodgett. Quit clapping first, and so should he show up in any of your classes, act as the Spirit moves you. Graduate students of the College of the Atlantic, would you please stand? These are your colleagues who will be seeking a Master of Philosophy in Human Ecology, and we welcome them. Let me also ask the third-year students at College of the Atlantic. Now, this gets confusing. Let me stop for just a minute. Because some of you never really know which year you're in. We could do first year because most of you can get that right. That's like if you have never been in Convocation before, you're likely to be a first year or a transfer. So it even gets confusing there. I'm just curious to see what happens if we say third year. Those of you who plan to graduate in 2011, would you please stand? And those of you who plan to graduate in 2012, would you please stand? Now we're coming to the two big deals in your own minds. Those who are going to graduate, perhaps I should phrase that conditionally. Those who hope to graduate next June, 4th or 5th or 6th or whatever year student you might be, welcome home. Would you please stand? So we are a group of people with common interests, but we are gathered around an uncommon purpose. I had several sobering experiences last summer. One involved driving in Devon and Cornwall in England, where the roads are narrow, they have hedges on both sides that are 18 feet high. The steering wheel is on the right, not on the left. The stick shift car, because they will not rent, at least for the price I was willing to pay, an automatic transmission to a foreign driver. So I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, shifting with the wrong hand, sharing the road with automobiles and buses and lorries, as was Jay and as was Rich Borden, that are much larger than should be allowed on that road, with drivers who think that speed limits are purely advisory kinds of things, maybe even bad advice, intentionally to be ignored, and with an aggressive teenager sitting in the back seat telling me exactly what to do at every moment, and trying to make sense out of a map that, or a set of maps that didn't quite match up against the terrain. And to the degree there is much of a lesson in what I have to say today, it is that the map is not the terrain. We have gotten to this point in human history with a map that was written by people like Adam Smith and Newton and Descartes. The map wasn't the terrain even when they wrote it. And what we're finding out now is that their legacy leaves us philosophically unprepared for the world that we must live in today, and the world in which you will grow up. Our currently dominant institutions are organized around principles and assumptions which are increasingly questionable, as demonstrated by the fact that there is not a thoughtful human being on this planet who can assert that business as usual will produce a world that any of us will want to live in by the end of this century. Let me take a little bit from Amory Lovins here in terms of the principles around which our worldview, the dominant worldview, the worldview which characterizes the institutions in which we live, is based. We've grown up with a story, a human story that says that human progress can be defined primarily in terms of acquisitive materialism, and that well-being and prosperity can be achieved only through models of development that equate consumption with wealth and success. We've grown up with a human story that tells us that security appropriately rests not on equity and justice, but on coercive power. And we've grown up with a human story that says that reliance on the scientific method can generate truth as well as facts, reliance on legal rational systems to produce justice, and on an elite-dominated set of political processes which we argue will produce democratic values. Business as usual. Just as I chose to go to Devon and try to drive around on those weird little roads in those funny little cars with those strange-sounding people, we've chosen this world in which we live. It's a matter of choice. This is the one that higher education has helped shape with every graduate that we have put out over the past century and a half. This is the world that every time you spend a dollar, you vote for or against. This is the world that we choose. And I would argue, and perhaps you'll remember this, that indeed 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Gregory Bateson, who was maybe the first, certainly one of the early human ecologists, was insightful about so much in terms of what we study. But he also said it is in our power to create insanity in the larger system of which we are parts. He observed that the ecological unit of survival was not the individual, but the individual in its environment. As ecologists, we will learn this from our own experiences. We know that no system that is maximized for one variable is sustainable. And I would assert to you with Bateson that just as we are capable of driving our world insane, we can also be part of its healing. And this places an enormous responsibility upon a college and upon all parts of its community. I hope this year you will have great fun seeking humor and wisdom. To the degree you fail at the latter, you may find that you have succeeded at the former, and that by succeeding at the former, you may have achieved some degree of the latter. I'm waiting while you diagram that sentence. But while we don't take ourselves seriously, let's take the task seriously. We have a choice. And what you will be studying during this year will help you understand the relationship between humans and the worlds that we are shaped by and the worlds that we shaped. We share a common heritage. We also share a common destiny at this convocation. We unite as a community to ask the best questions that we can to guide us as we make our choices about the future. And now I would like to introduce to you, if I might, those who are in convocation for the first time at College of the Atlantic. And to do that, I would like for those of you who are here for the first time, incoming students and transfers, to remain seated while the rest of us give you a standing ovation. Welcome to College of the Atlantic. We're really glad you're here, and everything that you do this year, we wish you good speed and good fortune. And now I get to do something that I have never done before. I get to convoke, and I don't even know if that is a verb, Drew. We try in ceremonies at the college to start them and finish them within an hour. And so officially and formally, this school year has begun. We are convoked. See you at the swim.